Thank you everybody for joining. This is Application Owl. My name is Ty, and I'm the founder of Application Owl, helping people to get the jobs that they want in the tech space. At this session, I'm going to do a mock interview with Kirk. I think watching interviews from the side, it's very useful, because it helps you to see maybe how you could perform better in interviews. I'm going to select a couple of questions and explain my rationale, and then let Kirk answer, and then kind of say maybe how it looked from my side. And I'll also explain my rationale as we go. This is like very useful because sometimes in interviews, people asking questions, but you're not sure why they're asking it. So I'm going to say, why am I asking this? Like, what am I looking for? And with that, Kirk, maybe would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Kirk Oubre. I'm currently reside here in the Plano, Texas area, Dallas Metroplex. I enjoy all things technology. I'm a gamer by heart, and a lot of times I enjoy having my team succeed, as well as my peers around me. So I would definitely say I'm someone that's open and welcoming, easy to talk to.
Cool. So let's start with the first question. The first question I'm going to ask is, tell me about yourself. The purpose of the tell me about yourself questions is a couple of purposes. I think I wrote about it in my blog. It's kind of breaking the ice. Also, sometimes people the interviewers come a bit not organized to the meeting, so it takes them some breathing room. But tell me about yourself is actually one of the most important questions, because it helps me to position Kirk in my head. So what is this person? Is it like senior, not senior, focused, not focused, generic, specialized, an academic? Like, what is this person? So remember, this is the first impression. Tell me about yourself is the first impression. And with that, Kirk, and I'll do a variations, right? So tell me about yourself and, the career progression you have in IT.
I'm sorry, what? Repeat that.
Tell me about yourself and the career progression you had in IT.
Yes. So I would say my current role with IT is a IT manager. I'm currently managing engineers throughout North America and internationally. Previously, I managed a team of local engineers, as well as asset and warehouse management team.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. So I would say the first thing is you have a lot of experience. One of the things to choose to highlight is managing, but you haven't highlighted a lot of stuff about IT.
Okay.
So hearing it from the side, I hear, first thing I hear like a general manager, because you said manage, which again, it's not wrong, but that's how it sounds. And the second thing that I think is missing, I ask specifically your career progression in IT, and you haven't said anything about
I
it.
didn't understand that word. Can you repeat?
The career, like your career.
Career?
Career, sorry, maybe it's my pronunciation. Career progression
sorry.
in IT,
That's
my bad.
what I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't
career
say.
progression.
Yeah, career. Yeah,
career progression. That's okay. Like hiring managers
No
also sometimes have
problem.
accent, so we simulate reality here. And
Yeah.
career progression in IT. So I would say there are two things here that maybe you would want to work on. The first is if you don't understand what I just make sure you understand the question and respond into it, because that's specifically about career progression in IT. People pay a lot of, remember that, like me, for example, when I interview people, I ask the same question like about 200 times. So I pay attention if people answer or do not answer the question. And at this point, it was just not answer the question, so there's just one. And the second thing is you have such a rich experience of IT that I think that's another thing to highlight, in addition to the managerial part.
Yes, and if I can re-answer it, now that I know you mentioned
Oh, it's
career,
okay. We have many. Don't worry about that. Like, you don't need to
I can
impress me.
definitely.
I'm
I
I'm
didn't
not hiring.
understand the word. I guess it was just a
That's
different
okay. Sometimes you
pronunciation.
don't understand the word, so you ask for clarification until you kind of get it.
Yes, yes.
It's like in real. By the way, for those for you and also for listeners, I would say 60% of the time that people flop in interviews, they don't answer the question. It's shocking how many people just don't answer the question. Now, not answering the question might be okay if you're like a politician at answering like a news reporter, but in an interview you need to answer the question. Okay, and if you don't understand or don't answer, it's kind of looking the same from the other side. Okay, now because you worked on IT, I would ask you a question, which is there is what's called behavioral questions. I usually personally do not ask behavioral. Can you tell me about a time where you blah 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 blah?
Yeah.
In many cases, I usually don't ask pure behavioral question. I ask behavioral questions that are mixed with technical. Tell me about a time where you, and then technical. Now, why is that? This assess your ability or your understanding of the position, not only if you know how to work in a team and if you like know how to lead or know how to problem solve, also like specific about something that's required in the job. So with that, let me give you a question, okay? By the way, one suggestions I have, when you interviewing virtually, write the question. It just makes things so much easier. You write the question, nobody's gonna be like, oh no, you wrote the question, that's terrible. And then you can always look at the questions and make sure that you answer it, because sometimes questions are a bit complicated. Or you just kind of forget when you answer in the first part. Okay?
Yeah.
It helps answering the question, which would put you higher than the other 50%. So can you describe a time when you standardized IT processes, standardization, IT processes, or implemented significant automation? What challenges did you face, and how did you measure success? You can write the question, no problem with that. So this is asking both behavioral, like about you as a person, how do you operate?
Hmm.
Also is asking what, like your understanding of the role, like automation is a part of it, and how do you overcome challenges like problem solving, and how do you measure success? So this is like a rich question. Go for it.
Okay. So in a recent project, we deployed assets. This was for some of our locations on the west coast of the United States. In this process, we would wait for the project to be presented to myself. I would go over the implications with my team. Then we would make a request from the vendor for the assets needed for the project. What I thought was this was a very redundant process, that we should have the inventory on hand, which would not only speed up the time of imaging the devices and getting them up to specifications for particular projects, as well as we would be able to ship these devices in a larger bulk at one time versus shipping them as we receive them. After I presented this not only to my team, but also to my peers, we agreed that we would come up with a standardized budget where we would request the um, devices from the vendor ahead of time and keep an allotment of 250 units at all. I'm always on site to expedite any projects that we have. This After implementing this change, we were able to increase our completion by 60% ahead of time, as well as we were able to build a stronger rapport with our clients and with our end users by making sure they got their equipment sooner than expected.
Okay, that was good. So I think you explained and answered the questions. Two improvements that I can suggest. Sorry, I would give more compliment just because of time, but I know, like, I think that overall you answered the questions.
Mhm.
I think that two things that maybe could have done better is the first one is when you describe the scenario, you jumped into the details. I wasn't clear about the setting or the situation of this, like what was even the company, which company it was, what was your role. I wasn't like very clear about this. You can also see later in the recording, it's kind of jumping into the details. And imagine somebody did not even read your resume. They don't have the right context, right? So I would say, like, set up the context. Sometimes it's called STAR, like situation, target, action, result. Like, what was the situation? What was the um, task? What was the task? What did you do? I think the setting of the context was a bit missing, so it's kind of jumped into the details. I think the story by itself was fine. One thing I would say is you can write stories in advance because you know those questions are coming. Personally, in ITAL, I would put a story that's more about like software or cybersecurity or something maybe a bit more kind of software convoluted, complicated, like uh, security or something like that, something more like software oriented,
Mhm.
than something about shipping devices.
Okay.
I think that shipping devices, it's more like, I'm not saying, of course, it's part of the role in many cases, but it's more like a project type of challenge
Mhm.
and not like an IT type of challenge.
Got it.
So an IT type of challenge would be like, oh, we discovered that some people are using Slack. Slack is non-compliant with a bunch of regulatory, like GPDR, whatever. So I had to, bring them into IT compliance with this and that policies. And the way that I did it was integrating them with our, I don't know, like identity management and access control management and employee registration or Active Directory, whatever. Then basically the project of now, this is also why preparation is important. I would highly recommend in advance, like put log 10 stories, those that tell the most impressive things on your resume. And then you can use those stories to highlight and talk about the impressive points of your resume. Remember that a lot of people read in your resume, they're not like, they just brief through it. So this is your opportunity to talk about your accomplishments and where you shine through stories.
Mhm.
So that's something that I would recommend. By the way, a tip, if you're doing an interview from home, you can always just write down the stories on the side and just look at them and just choose on the fly.
Okay.
You can have as many notes as you want next to your computer when you're interviewing to remind you of your story. It's not cheating to have stories that you can remember.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do, maybe we have time, maybe one more. Let's talk production. Okay. So the purpose of production is to know if you like kind of like a theoretical person or if you like actually ran production system, because IT is a lot of production system. So sometimes I like to help people practice production question. So a production question here, let's tell me about a situation where you had to respond to a critical IT production problem or cybersecurity challenge. How did you lead your team through it?
Sure. Well, most recent one was Azure to Okta migration. One of the root causes of the issue were a lot of our end users did not check their work day until it was time for them to receive their paychecks. Um, this caused quite a few issues with us completing the project and us knowing what the capture rate was for users, and if we would encounter any issues with completing the project. What I was able to do was to work with my team to build or to come up with documentation to present to the managers at those locations, to give or paste around the site, as well as send out on emails to the users to advise them of the change in the multi-factor authentication and the need for them to complete it by a particular deadline, so they would be processed through the migration and as well be able to access the Workday application for any personal needs or anything to view their paychecks as well. After we reached out to numerous district and regional managers, myself and my team included, we were able to get the necessary capture rate that our infrastructure team was not able to see during the part of their surveys or their research. So me reaching out to my team to get that information and spread it out as quickly as possible helped us to get the project completed on time.
Okay, so the first thing, that's a good topic. I think that you ran through it well. A couple of things that I would say that maybe could have improved that. One is the context. So you said, oh, there was like this one day, or we had to migrate to Okta. There was no maybe a bit more context about what was this migration to Okta.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that this is enriching to show your leadership and your IT understanding. So it's like, why did they even need to migrate to Okta? So this is to another way where you can show, you could say, hey, I led a project that to prevent I don't know, cybersecurity threats through some let's say logins from IP ranges, or whatever the reason is to migrate from Okta. I'm not sure, but you could explain why you migrated to Okta, because I would assume that also was a project that you worked on, and that also helps to set up the context. Just why was this project even there? The second thing is, why this problem even happened? It wasn't clear from the story, because remember that the issue is that when you're describing a challenge, it also might be seen that this challenge was on you. It's almost like a problem that you created. And then you said, oh, people did not check their emails. But as somebody with 15 years of experience, you should have predicted that people don't check their emails, because I'm sure people don't check their emails, so don't migrate. So that's kind of maybe how I would just pay attention to this, because it's almost like you didn't set the context of why it was needed. And then there was a problem that, yeah, people don't check their emails, they don't migrate. I mean, yeah, that's kind of expected. But then why was this migration? Why there was no other way to do it? Why people have to do it? Why you couldn't have done it for them? Why they need to check their email? Maybe there was another way. So I think that this thing was kind of a bit missing. And again, for a more senior position, they might ask themselves, why was this problem existing to begin with?
Got it.
Because
it was a change. I mean, again, we were going from an old system to, we were going from Okta to Azure, because.
Yeah, but you see why people might.
Yeah.
Especially, here's the thing: you're a senior person. As a senior person, it's not like the story goes more than I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that, but more like, okay, what was the reason for that? What could have been done differently? Yes, it was pretty clear that this thing would happen, but that's how the process works. And then you have to force migrate those that don't migrate the good way, you do it the bad way, and that's and I think the last one that when you're describing a challenge, and that challenge maybe taught you something, then in the end you could say, okay, what did I learn from this crisis? So it's almost like an opportunity to show that you have improved as a result. Now, maybe you haven't, that's okay. But then you have to say that this was as expected. If it was as expected, then there is maybe nothing to improve because it was expected it's going to be and you've done it 100 times. If it was not as expected, you learned something. What have you learned from that for next time? One of the things that I say, the biggest challenge for people with many years of experience, myself included, is the fact that in the US, people are biased towards progression. What does it mean? It means that you need to become better and better and better. So it's less about the absolute level, it's more about kind of up, 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 up. So it's almost like the stories have to be like a story of, I don't want to say redemption, but it's like stories have to be like you learn something and improve something out of them, especially if you run into some challenge that had maybe some issues. So that's kind of maybe kind of thinking about why this thing even happened, why did you learn from it, why it was even needed. I would maybe enrich it a bit. I think that you don't want to make it like too fluffy and too long. I think your answers are to the point, and that's good. I think that a bit of setting up context, and maybe, by the way, it's not necessarily how you improved. It could be how the organization improved. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? Maybe you knew everything. Maybe you've done it 200 times. That's okay. But what you found out was that in the organization, there was no ability to have, I don't know, two identity management, or maybe some other things, or maybe some other confusion. And you have improved that. So not you improved as a person, but the organization or the systems, you improved them as a result. Okay. I think we're out of time. I hope that was useful.
Yeah, it was, definitely. Thank you.
And one thing I would say is I would recommend this with mock interviews, okay? Watching yourself doing mock interviews is super cringe. It's very difficult for people. That's why a lot of actors don't like to watch the movie that they participated in when it was released. Today, there are AI tools. I would recommend, if you have mock interview, you have more opportunities to mock interviews, record, feed that, and then say, okay, like maybe how things could have been better according to some metrics. Did the answer was clear? Was it a star? Did it answer the point? Was it, are there any repeating themes? Just analyze your answer. You can almost like just go to Glassdoor, see questions, and just answer them like you answered here. And then try and look for repeating themes. You can also work with people that would analyze your answers. So
Okay.
cool. And good luck with everything, Kirk. I think you have good experience. I think it's just I always tell people finding a job and doing the job is two completely different skills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just practice.
Yes. Thank you. And I do still want to work with you with the optimization that we discussed.
Cool. Yeah, happy to. Good luck.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Bye.
Thank you.